Hey, I'm in the room again. I figure, the last video I made, I was listening back to it and I thought, even though I was in the room, I thought it was a pretty good conversation. So, um, I wanted to kind of talk about my first time in Russia. I first came to Russia in the year 2000. And what was I going to say? I was listening to some music, because I make these kind of music edits as I'm walking down the street. Um, with a good song that I hear, and I know it's not that interesting, that people aren't necessarily like dying to watch it, but I like making it. Sometimes you hear a nice song, you hear a nice track, and you want to kind of create some kind of dramatic film, some kind of emotional, something that evokes emotion. You know what I mean? So I don't know if the lighting is good here. I got my hat on. I should probably like put the camera on myself a little bit. Anyway, but I remember as I was watching that, I was watching back the little video that I made just to see how bad it is or how good it is. Because sometimes I just make videos and I hate making them and I don't want to make them and I don't like the comments and I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like, but sometimes it's cool, like making the talking helps a lot, especially when it's just a camera where you don't have any reaction. You could just kind of express yourself and not worry about a person's reaction or whatever until the comments come. But when I first visited Russia in the year 2000, it was such an interesting time. I was homeschooled at that time, and because I was looking at my videos of the song, I remembered that I had forgot. I had forgot. I had forgot that I brought two CDs with me to to Russia. I had $50 for the entire 3 weeks, which was nothing. I had nothing. I had like barely any clothes, and my clothes got so messed up because I would just like get sweaty, and I would play on the bouncy castle that we set up at the orphanage, and I would just be completely reckless. I used to get like grass stains on my jeans. I used to tear up all my clothes, and I was a I was like a hyper just this hyper kid that was all over the place. No money. My parents gave me like $50 for the entire 3 weeks, which I have no idea. Even I knew at the time, I was like, that's like, no, I don't know how that's gonna last me for 3 weeks. Um, but yeah, we made it work. But I brought, you know, two CDs, and it's funny to think back about the music at the time. It was a um, it was a Lifehouse CD. So I had the little Discman player, which I don't even know how I had that even. And I would walk around the streets of St. Petersburg and listen to listen to Lifehouse and this other band called 12 Stones. They were like quote unquote like Christian alternative or whatever, Christian music. So I'd walk through the streets and I'd be like I am now, like this kid who'd listen to this type of music, and I'd just get all like emotive, I'd imagine that my life was some kind of like sad movie or something. But Russia was so interesting. And, back in those days, I was 13 years old. Um, I, how do I put this, man? I was like really into girls, like I was like really motivated by like girls and that kind of thing. So I guess like part of me would like these kind of sad songs would inspire me to kind of be this, like, I don't know. I don't even know. I guess I just liked it. But Lifehouse is particularly, it's funny because now the internet, now it's like, if something's sad, they say it's depressing. So the internet immediately labels it as depressing, which when I was a kid, I wasn't aware that this was like depressing music. I just thought it was like cool and it evoked like a interesting emotion in me. Yeah. I like the feeling of being, I guess it was like sadness, I guess, but it wasn't, it was just like, is it sadness? It's just like this kind of deep emotion or whatever. It's not like I was necessarily sad because I was, but yeah, it was kind of, I would like make these dramatic kind of scenes and these like everything was like a tragedy or like, I just thought that was interesting. So yeah, the song playing in the background, imagine me walking around the streets of St. Petersburg with that going on in my head. And so yeah, I mean, about that, what else is there to say? It was so long ago that I forget. Um, Being 13 years old at that time was an extremely, it was like puberty time. You know what I mean? So that was like a one of those milestones in life. And what was I gonna say? So what I would do is I kept a journal actually. I kept a journal. I used to write songs. I had a guitar too. I'd have a notebook and I would write songs and I'd be like I filled up the notebook with my songs. But in rush also I brought a journal, like a paper journal, and every night before I went to sleep, I'd write in my journal and I'd write exactly what happened that day and how I felt about it. That I learned from my sixth grade teacher, Miss LaRose. She made us do a reading journal where we had to read a book and we read a certain amount of pages every day. And then we would we would put an entry in our reading journal where we'd summarize what we read and then we also wrote our opinion about it. So it was kind of that format. I'd write a summary of exactly what we did that day, which, whatever, and then I'd write how I felt about it. So I also had like, I brought a camera, like a 35 millimeter camera, and I think I brought maybe like a few rolls of film. And I filled them up and I took all these awesome pictures because I made a lot of Russian friends back then, actually. I met a lot of Russian friends. It was funny because our church group was like obviously American, and it was like our church group was like an episode. It was like that show, The Real World. It was like everybody started kind of hooking up, and like, the guy likes the girl, and like everybody kind of paired up, kind of. Not everybody, but like people were definitely pairing up, like guys and girls, you know what I mean? And meanwhile, me, I was so, I was like homeschooled, and at the time I was like pretty socially awkward, to be honest. But either way, like I was more interested in Russians and Russian girls, to be honest, in particular. So I probably took pictures of all the Russian girls that I met and stuff like that, and it's hard to remember. But anyways, the point of this is like, yeah, I definitely had a tough time with the American people. I definitely didn't fit into the group. They probably thought I was like weird, which I was. I was homeschooled. I was really like repressed or whatever because I grew up in a Christian, quote unquote Christian household where I was restricted. I wasn't allowed to go out. I wasn't allowed to do anything. But the thing is that I had this journal and I had all these pictures, and I remember I treasured these pictures so much. I treasured them, and the journal too. And I would look through the pictures all the time, and I kept them. And when I was 15 or so, I left to go live with my grandfather. And eventually I returned to my parents' house, and I found out that they had, you know, they had thrown out all my pictures from Russia. They had thrown out, I probably kept I got cards from this one girl in Russia. I got cards from probably other people in Russia too. And like notes and like little mementos. I probably kept them in a box or something. And those were like literally treasures for me. But when I moved with my grandfather, I just kept a lot of stuff in my parents' house. And when I came back, they had thrown out the pictures, all my stuff from Russia. They threw out my notebook of songs. They threw out my journal, my Russian journal, you know. And I remembered like like hating them so much. That was a big deal, man. And it's been so long, I don't even think about that anymore. But for so long, I used to think, man, what I would give to read what I wrote in Russia. You know what I mean? I would love to read what I wrote in Russia. I spent 3 weeks in Russia, which I've been here in Russia for a month, and it's quite a significantly long time, especially when every day you have a full schedule. You're busy, super busy, doing all kinds of different things, meeting all kinds of different people. Every day was like an adventure, like a super adventure. We'd wake up at the crack of dawn, and it was in August, so it was like, the days were really long. But I have forgotten about that, and I forgot that I used to listen to Lifehouse on the street, walking down the street and being all emotional, thinking about my life and being all like, oh, my life is such a tragedy, Because I used to think that because I was so deprived and I felt like I was always kind of like, I felt like my life was like some kind of like tragic, just a sad story, man. Because I wanted to really make friends. And I felt like I was missing out on all this like stuff, which I was. I was. My dad used to tell me like, you're not missing out on anything. And that's not true. Because I always have the belief that, when things pass by and that's it. Like when it's over, it's over. And especially at that age, like that's such an important time. You're experiencing everything for the first time. And I just wanted friends really bad. I wanted to interact with people really bad. I was always grounded at home. I wasn't allowed to go outside and make friends with it. There was like a bunch of kids that lived on the block, and I couldn't talk to them. I couldn't hang out with them. So going to Russia was this miracle. It was this miracle that happened. I couldn't believe that I was allowed to go. And I made so many Russian friends, and I got so close to Russian people, and I was like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. At the end of the trip, we all exchanged like addresses, and we were going to become pen pals, and like we were going to talk to each other. And yeah, for me, it was like getting close to girls. I used to like do this thing where I would ask a girl if I could put my head on her shoulder. I was like 13, and they'd be like, yeah, and I'd like take a nap on a girl's lap or something like that, and like she put her hand on my head, and for me, like, that was like, I mean, that was literally living in heaven. It's pretty much like the best thing ever. Meanwhile, I was with a church group and we were supposed to be doing church things. But of course, like for me, that was the last thing I cared about at all. I just used it as an opportunity to meet people. We had to like hand out flyers and talk to people, which was so funny. I remember handing out flyers I would only hand out flyers to girls because I wanted to talk to girls. So, and some ladies were rude. Like, they would just be like, no. And I wouldn't care. I get rejected like a million times, but I made so many friends and I love that kind of thing. But every night I would go home with my roommates and in the Russian apartment, and I'd make pelmeni. I'd fry pelmeni with butter every night. And we'd fall asleep watching an episode of Friends every night. It's crazy memories. I can barely remember it because it was so long ago. And then every night I would write in my journal so I could remember what happened. I'd write exactly what happened that day. And my parents threw it all out. And I was like, when I talk about like, when I talk about hate, the feeling of hate and anger that I had over not just that, I mean, that was just one of like the many, 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 many things that had gone wrong, and that were just bad in the house and in our house. That was just that was like a drop in the bucket. That was nothing. But I just didn't understand why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And in my mind, it was like they wanted to provoke me, they wanted to clearly you have to want to provoke someone to to throw out their like such an intimate personal possessions. And I filled up 2 rolls of film and I took so many pictures. And when I tell you, like, I treasured those pictures, man, like I would flip through them, and every time you see a picture, I'd like, it would put me back there. And you imagine when you take a picture, you capture the entire scene. So there would be like the background, and you could see the street. Even now I'm obsessed with like Russian streets and stuff because it's so different. And in every picture you could capture like the person that I want to take a picture of, and then the background, maybe like a building. And I'd probably stare at these pictures for like forever, just like each individual one, just looking at them and being like, wow, like that was so cool, man. Like taking pictures at the orphanage in the park, taking pictures of, I wish I could remember, it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's been almost 25 years now, but it's been years and years and years since I've had any kind of emotion. I don't feel anything anymore, But for a while, I would think what I wouldn't do to get my pictures back and my journal back. I would love to know what my 13-year-old self was thinking at that time. Now I feel nothing. Like, I don't feel anything. I'm like, I feel nothing anymore. But so by the end of the trip, I managed to save my money, and I wound up buying like a t-shirt on the one day that we went to like the center of St. Petersburg, because we were mostly outside the city center, like a long ways away. I forgot where. I think we were in Pushkin. I can't honestly remember where we were, but definitely we were in the Soviet bloc, residential areas with courtyards, definitely not in the center. But one day we went to the center to do all the souvenir shopping and everything, and I bought like 10 bootleg CDs. That's what I wanted to do with my money, because I didn't have I couldn't listen to any regular music. It had to be like Christian music. And somehow Lifehouse was considered Christian. Somehow, I don't know. But I played that CD so many times, just walking through the street, listening to this sad music and stuff. I don't know what the point of that is, but like, I remember like Russia for me, there was so much tied into it, you know, like there was so much emotion. It was such an intense experience. And I just wish I could remember. I wish I could remember, man. That's why, like, I love hearing stories about those days, the old days, you know, the 2000s. It's such a special time. It was such a cool time. There's a guy, actually, the guy who actually gave me the idea to get a student visa. He makes videos. He's kind of funny, but he makes really interesting stuff because he came to Russia in the year 2001. So he, in my opinion, he has like the most awesome stories. And when I hear his stories, it really like touches my, I don't know, I guess my, it gives me like, it makes me smile, you know, like it's like, oh man, like, right, yeah, Russia, that's so cool. Like back in those days, such an interesting time. Russia was definitely more rough around the edges, but the people, obviously the people that I met were like, they were just, they had, I don't know, I guess, I don't want to sound corny or anything like that, but I remember meeting Russian people and I was like, they had such a soul, like they had such a deep soul, you know. I formed a connection with Russians really easily. Yeah. Oh man. I have a story about a girl that I met there too. I guess I might as well say it. It's like, you know, me, I was really girl crazy, I guess you could say. I was really annoying. I used to, when I was younger, I used to chase girls around everywhere. Um, just to the point of just being really annoying. A lot, like, so the translators, some of them really did not like me, you know, but at that time I didn't care, you know, like some people liked me, some people didn't like me. But there was one girl, I think she was like a translator's daughter or something, and you know, she didn't like me at all. Like she did not like me. But by the end of the trip, by the time we left, tell me why she walks up to me. There's this girl, like, she just did not like me. And to be honest, I didn't, you know, I was like, whatever, like, okay. But she would like look at me and I catch her looking at me and she would just be scowling at me. You know what I mean? Like I'd be like, all right, I get it. Like, I don't want to, I wouldn't get even near her. I wouldn't even talk to her at all. And by the end of the trip, she comes up to me and I'm like, what the fuck do you want? I'm like, what are you doing? And she gives me a card. She gives me a card and she writes in the card all this shit about like, I'm sorry, I was mean, da da da. Here's my number, here's my address. And I'm like, what the fuck? It was the weirdest, it was the weirdest thing ever. It was very confusing because this girl, when I tell you like this girl, like, it was like she hated me. Like, it was like she loathed me. Like, she was disgusted by me. And by the end, you give me a card? Like, why? Like, there's no explanation for that. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear an explanation for that. That stands out to me as one of the most ridiculous things that's ever happened to me. And I've lived 37 years and I've had a lot of experiences, but that one was a weird one. I've had girls that, like, it seems they act like they don't like you, but you can tell they just have a strong feeling towards you of like dislike. But, you know, there's a thin line between love and hate, you know what I mean? So if somebody hates you, you can flip it to love pretty easily. But this girl, it was like I felt this too when I'm disgusted by someone, where just the sight of them makes me sick. You know what I mean? That's how she felt towards me. I could see it in her face. So what would possess you? I think maybe because you know how girls are. It's like once you lose interest, then all of a sudden they're like they change their minds all of a sudden. So maybe it's because she was so disgusted and like uninterested in me that I was like, I did not even talk to her. I wouldn't even look in her direction because I was like, I don't even want to. I could tell you don't like me. Like, so I think the fact that she saw that I wouldn't even talk to her, probably by the end, she was like, oh, he doesn't even pay me attention. So you know how girls are. Girls are fucking retarded. When she gave me that, but I kept the postcard because I was like, I would like it and I appreciate it. I think it's cool, but would I talk to her? No, like hell no, hell no. But my parents threw, that was part of the box of stuff that my parents threw out. Imagine me at 37 years old getting worked up about my parents throwing stuff out. I feel nothing about it anymore. But even now, like, I'd be kind of curious. I'm not even really that curious about it anymore. But oh, I would love to see the pictures though. The pictures, I would love to see like a record of what exactly I did every day. Oh man, it's all that's gone. Anyway, all right. Here's my dorm. Talk to you later.